Hello again! Back at you again with another DC Deep Dive, brought to you courtesy of my wonderful patrons, links below. And today we're going to be doing something a little unusual, namely spotlighting a project that never saw the light of day. One that has recently been uncovered thanks to the fandom, the show Bible for a 1980s Batman cartoon with Robin Jason as one of its central characters. It ended up getting pulled for one reason or another, but we can still appreciate what could have been and mourn what we lost. Thus, here's some excerpts and commentary from the series Bible, which is surprisingly an easy read and also quite funny. I've linked it below. A brilliant shaft of light slices through the darkened sky, flashing across low-hung clouds and rooftops, spearing the night winds with a yellow and black symbol, his symbol, the sign of the bat, and this is his world. A world of danger and excitement, of strange and fantastic villains, of adventure and gadgetry and heroism, and, at the heart of it all, a bond of love and dedication between two people, father and son, hero and apprentice, Batman and Robin. For nearly 50 years, the Batman has been one of the most famous and enduring of heroes. During that time, his popularity has taken on nearly mythic proportions, second only to Superman. There are reasons for this, reasons we must explore and understand if we hope to replicate the success of Batman in the world of Saturday morning animation. This shows a clear love of the material and premise that one doesn't always see in adaptations, and the emotional openness and emphasis on father and son relationship is a stark contrast to how the topic is often touched on in many adaptations. As an aside, I am very intrigued by the fact they had Bruce living with his uncle Philip in this over Alfred. Seriously, if this cartoon took off, imagine how it would have potentially shifted the modern fandom landscape. Moving on to Robin, I'm surprised to find the concept of Batman needs a Robin introduced here, but it makes thematic sense as outlined on page 6. Robin, or more accurately, the new Robin. For many years, Batman has worked with his young ward, Dick Grayson. As Robin, they tackled crime side by side and daring adventures together. But young wards have a habit of growing up. Eventually, Dick Grayson matured, and a time came when he knew he had to leave Batman's shadow and strike out on his own. This he did, assuming the alter ego of Nightwing, whose costume perhaps not accidentally somewhat resembles Batman's. For quite some time thereafter, the Batman operated alone, but the void in his life previously filled by Dick Grayson gnawed at him. This need, this relationship is the key element in the Batman's nature, and the adventure that will make up the series. Don Quixote needed Sancho Panza, Sherlock Holmes needed his Watson, and the Batman needs a Robin. In the absence of Robin, he tends towards a grim, relentless sort of attitude. Robin is needed to lighten his load, make him smile, remind him that there is light in the darkness. Everything about Robin is different if one stops to consider it. The colors of his uniform are bright and cheerful, in stark contrast to the somber blue and grey of Batman's cowl and costume. By nature, a Robin is associated with sunshine and cheer, a portent of bright days. A bat is a thing of shadows, fear, a harbinger of ill tidings, at least for some. The old wisdom still holds true. Opposites attract, but for several years there was no opposite, no light side to balance out the dark. Then, a little over a year ago, as this is being written, something remarkable happened. Late one night, while returning from the scene of a crime, Batman turned a corner and made a startling discovery. Someone had boosted the Batmobile, taken the tires and the hubcaps and anything else that wasn't nailed down. He could only stand there, jaw agape. It took several seconds for the immensity, the absurdity of his situation to sink in. Someone stole his tires, from the Batmobile! It didn't take long for the world's greatest detective to track down the offender. His name, Jason Todd, an orphan around 12 or 14 years old. Jason was a street kid, but smart, wily, with a sense of humor and irony. He would have preferred to live straight, but there aren't many ways for a kid on his own to make money. Boosting cars was one way, and boosting the Batmobile was just too big of a challenge to resist. On discovering the nature of the culprit, the Batman was torn on between several emotions. On one hand, it was a crime, a wrong thing to steal tires, especially when they were his, but he had to admit there was a certain humor about it, and it proved the kid had brass combined with smarts. It wasn't easy to circumnavigate the Batmobile's automatic defense system, but young Jason Todd had done exactly that. Batman's curiosity was piqued, and after getting the tires back, for quite a reasonable price, he began to keep an eye on Jason. At a crucial moment, when Jason stood on the crossroads between honesty and a life of crime, Jason stood up to a local gang and chose the former, putting himself at great risk. It was then that the Batman showed up again, helping him out of the scrape and putting the gang behind bars. With Jason's help, of course. It was obvious that they made quite a team, so it was logical that instead of letting Jason return alone to the streets, Batman offered him a once-in-a-lifetime opportunity opportunity, the chance to become the second ward of millionaire Bruce Wayne and become the new Robin. Jason considered the offer for all about 5 seconds before agreeing. Thus, from a mutual need and a mutual respect came the rebirth of the dynamic duo. Batman and Robin, the boy wonder, were back. An important distinction that must be drawn here between Jason Todd and the original Robin, about whom more later, is that Jason is still learning, very much a neophyte at crime fighting. He sometimes makes mistakes. Batman has him on a fairly strict regime of school, physical workouts, and classes in criminology. Jason tackles these subjects with the exuberance of youth, which has its good points and its bad points. Sometimes exuberance spills over into recklessness, and that is when things get a little sticky for the boy wonder, or as the Joker is fond of calling him at such times, Reuben the boy hostage. Given how things turned out for Jason in the comics, that's especially grim. And more pointedly, obviously Jason being captured often would be a bit of an annoying recurring element, but the fact this is specifically being tied to his inexperience and newness does alleviate that concern somewhat. What's more, and regardless, I just really like the origin from this. It's very clearly tied to his post-crisis version, but it avoids a lot of the bias certain authors brought to that background, more or less. Though interestingly, we find out on page 9 that it's actually a fusion of backgrounds, as Jason was still in the circus with his parents but somehow ended up homeless. I also like the little reference to the silent back and forth between Batman and Robin, but that's on page 9 if you're interested. Beyond this, the series would maintain the standard Bruce Wayne philanthropist playboy angle. It also gives an interesting insight to why he chooses to do this, as opposed to just outsourcing it. Which is when Bruce would have patiently explained the need to take personal responsibility for your world, your life, your city, to take a stand against the growing dark. One shouldn't let the pursuit of pleasure interfere with one's duty. A pause. Does this mean I shouldn't have wired the Batmobile for MTV? We repeat, a frowning Batman is not a pretty sight. There's also an aside that describes Jason having a lot of Clark Kent in him, which I don't know what to do with, but it's a really interesting idea. I also really like the interlude on page 15. This attitude I think comics could do with more today. If it seems we have dwelled quite a bit on the personal side of the Batman and Robin relationship and on their relationship as Bruce and Jason, we have, and there is a reason for it, a reason that strikes to the core of what will make this series different from any other. In virtually all animated superhero shows, the secret identities are virtual throwaways, a quick glimpse of the hero and civvies at the top of the show, then zoom away and to the next fight. They are strictly two-dimensional. They fight crime in a world utterly devoid of any personal context, and the relationship usually seen as one of chums going out and doing cool stuff. No depth of feeling, no true friendship or camaraderie. Batman will be different. Make no mistake, the emphasis of the show will always be on action, adventure, and excitement, but it will be wrapped around this unique relationship, because that aspect gives us a fantastically wide range of stories and approaches. It can bring in comedy, warmth, silliness, love, anger, and everything in between. In short, it gives us a context in which to have some very real fun. Jumping ahead, their setup for Alfred seems solid, not much to comment on there. Miss Chandra, however, is wild to me, and does kind of show the show's age, but is intriguing, because guess what? Jason has another mother figure! Literally, Bruce thinks the reason he and Dick's relationship ended up strained was the lack of a maternal figure, so he commissioned Superman to build a robot nanny. She also just happens to be sentient. Moving right along, because I'm not sure how I can unpack that, I think it's fun how the writers realize the bat signal no longer makes sense, and so it and Gordon would be used very sparingly. I like the justifications for the villains' more public antics being rooted in their egos. It honestly works well on a character front, so that's neat. There's also Frederica Miles, I'm not sure if I pronounced her name right, who seems like an interesting addition to the cast. Most other thoughts belong in fanfiction, but the fact her dad is Ragdoll is a shock. Also, Dick wouldn't be a constant presence, but would be central with Jason as a big brother when he was included. You did what to the Batmobile? A shrug from Jason, perhaps an offhand reference to the MTV escapades, and Dick is nonplussed. You're kidding. Man, he would have killed me if I'd tried something like that. A calculated to the kilowatt smile. Hey, you just have to know how to handle him. From downstairs, a somber, warning voice. Jason, I would like to see you. Now. And the smile turns back into a shrug. Guess he found the happy faces I put on the batarangs. It's very much a sibling relationship. Dick paved the way and Jason gets to reap the advantages, but is also stuck with the knowledge that he has a lot to live up to. I love this dynamic. How dare DC deny me it? I don't have time to summarize the example episodes, but while a bit of their day, they also radiate potential and a strong sense of character and tone. It's honestly a crying shame this didn't get to be a series. If you would like to help support these episodes and get early access to scripts, videos, stories and art, please hit up my Patreon. If you would like to commission 3D art, please swing by my coffee and we can chat. For now though, that's all. Thanks for stopping by.